All right, everybody. Welcome back to the SSD slash Muscle Engineer podcast. This is the second or third quarantine cast that we are going to do.
Third.
Third, yeah. It's just I started calling it quarantine cast the last time, so technically it's the second, but we could call it the third. But yeah, so Andrei slash Andras, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm very good. Things are looking optimistic, like I mentioned to you in some of our messaging. According to the government, the emergency, whatever status, whatever period is going to be lifted on the 15th, which means that you will no longer require, a paper basically wherever you go, so you will be able to move freely insofar as no one will stop you on the street and ask you where are you going, where are you headed. Of course, social distancing is still in place, and one other thing that's going to be implemented is masks will be mandatory in closed spaces basically, which I assume that is already a thing in many places, but it's not yet. So it's, just recommended to wear a mask whenever you go, to buy groceries or whatever, but it's not mandatory so far.
Yeah, here it's been interesting because it gradually got worse and now it got a bit more relaxed again. So at first it started out with we can only be outside until 9 p.m. And then it switched from that to it was until 4 p.m. And on the weekends, we couldn't go out at all. That lasted for 2 weeks.
No way.
Yeah, but so I only experienced that for basically 1 week because then I went to this holiday house kind of thing, to the countryside sort of thing, very close to the Greek border. And I spent the last week there, and they had a big garden and even a freaking pool. So that was all right. And now they lifted this restriction a little bit by we can only be out until 7 p.m. during the week. And on the weekends, on Saturday, we can be out until 3 p.m. On Sunday, it's complete lockdown.
Wow.
And but now we have to wear masks in closed spaces like you guys. And if I had to predict something, I would think that in about 2 weeks, they will kind of loosen things up a bit more still. And they're kind of talking that in a couple of weeks, like maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that, they will gradually start opening things up again, which will be a very welcomed thing from my end, of course. But sort of my big fear is that it's only, we will be living with kind of restrictions on and off for a long time, which we will see if that actually ends up happening. And what I mean by that is now they're going to open things up. Now we're going to be kind of free to do things and go to restaurants and to the gym, for a month or two. And then they're going to kind of close things down again if there is a second wave, or more like when the second wave comes, because it's not a question of if, more so when, which will be a curious thing because obviously if you keep locking things down and again, that will be enough to crash 2 world economies, let alone 1. So we will see how that goes. But that's more or less how the state of things are. And I guess because we would want to segue into that. Anyway, it looks like I might actually be able to go to a gym, maybe next week onwards. Some guy has a private facility or something like that, a small one, or so I've heard at least. So that would be cool, and I know you've been able to go to your gym as someone who works there, so that's been cool for you.
Yes, so just first, wow, that's your government isn't playing around. Wow, I had no idea.
No.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, by the way, another trivia. So Macedonia stopped receiving post from other countries. So my parents wanted to send me something, and they couldn't because Macedonia is not receiving any postage.
Oh, wow. Yeah, packages aren't supposed to be affected by this, but wow, I don't know, I would probably go insane. I know that it's only, I'm sure someone would reply with, it's only a day or it's only 2 days, but not go out at all for 2 days, that's hard.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would do.
Yeah, and the thing about it is I see where they're coming from, and probably it does make some sense. There is definitely a drawback, so it's not, I don't think the effect is as they would want it to be, because what results from this is that on Fridays it's complete madness because people are flooding the stores. It's like a bigger crowd than ever because, oh my God, we cannot go out during the weekend. And then on Monday when they open up, it's madness once again. So it's kind of insane. And also this time restriction when we could only go out until 4 p.m. I mean, in the grocery stores, it's been complete insanity because people want to get done everything in that limited amount of time that they have. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's silly on multiple levels. Like, first of all, I've seen some research that open air is not only safe, it might be beneficial. I mean, that's just aside from the, sunshine's effect and, mental stuff, like simply for the virus. Like, open air seems to be safe. Like, there's been a study, I'm sure you've heard it, that there have been some cruise ship and people have been infected on that. But I've read some report from Chris Masterjohn, who has this great newsletter about COVID-19 updates, that the people who had basically a cabin which had sort of access to the sea or something like that, so they were able to go out, whatever the technical term is for that, they didn't get sick, which is very interesting. So about 20% of people didn't get sick on that cruise ship, and it seems like most, if not all of them, had a cabin like that. So it would seem that, fresh air is protective, or at least it won't make people sick. So, to not be able, like I would understand if perhaps, facilities were closed on the weekend, like grocery stores are closed on the weekend. Okay, fine. But to not be able to go out at all, like it just sounds silly. And like you said, if you only have a couple of hours, of course people will, gather, or, they have no choice basically, and they have to get everything done during those hours. Whereas, over here, stores are basically, are manageable during all times because one, there is a limit of the number of people, and, people just have a lot of time to, go out and buy their stuffs.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it seems to me that, Macedonia, small country, it's like, oh my God, the virus, so scary. And kind of everybody shit their pants in the, the governing political kind of system. So they're kind of making a few curious choices and a bit naive maybe. But I mean, I don't want to talk like I know better. Maybe it will end up turning out to be a good idea, but obviously it sucks. Yeah, I mean, honestly, the complete lockdown, it's surprising how much it matters from a mental standpoint. I mean, maybe you saw my Instagram stories, I've been out on my balcony having this little stepper, and I've been kind of going for walks on my balcony.
Yeah, I thought you were trolling.
No, that's completely serious. I get in like 5,000 steps per day on that stepper, being out. But wow. Still, I mean, when Monday rolls around, I mean, I go out in the morning. And honestly, my first thought, because I was walking around and I had this, I cannot even describe, but it was so freeing to walk. And I was like, man, so this is how dogs must be feeling, especially those that are like kept in a kennel, and cannot even move around when they're finally taken for a walk. Honestly, it was like that. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah, or, like on the country's rural area, kept on a chain.
What?
Kept on a chain, dogs.
Oh, I thought you said Captain Chain. I was like, is that a cartoon or something?
No. Dogs who are kept on chains, like poor
yeah,
guys. Yeah, so I didn't really address the gym. So yeah, that's basically a secret. So, it stays between us. But we managed to, the owner agreed for us to go to the gym. And, we basically had a month or so where we didn't go because we were like, well, it's prohibited and this and that. But after a while, many people say that you should probably have separate areas. Like, I'm sure you've seen it, like working from home tips. And one of those is, don't work in your bedroom, and which is fine if you have multiple rooms, but many people don't have. But anyway, if you have the opportunity or luxury, whatever, keep your bedroom for, sleeping and sex. And aside from that, eat in the kitchen, and then work in your office and stuff like that. And basically, because I live in a small apartment, like my bedroom is my office and my gym and all that. And I didn't really realize how much it really helps to have a gym, not just because of the equipment, of course, but simply to have that segregation and, have that switch. Okay, now first of all I have to get there, so that's extra steps, so that's good for me, but also, I have to actually go out, I have to prepare and all that, and now I go to the gym, and the gym is this place where I do this. I don't party in here, I don't work from here, or you know what I mean. Like, it's really hard. I'm sure you feel this, like it's hard to not necessarily feel motivated, just to, get yourself start training. And I had that feeling as well, that, oh, I don't really feel like training, whereas I don't really get that when I go to the gym.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's been kind of baffling for me from the get-go just how unmotivated I was to do these home workouts, which I'm, maybe I could lie about it and kind of keep the good image and tell everyone that, hey, I'm doing the workouts, you should do it too. But I totally feel for anyone who is not feeling up to them, because really, it's because working out, and often working out compulsively, has been such a part of my identity that, if anything, I identified as someone who, if I do have a problem, it's that I don't know when to pull back. Sometimes I'm reckless. I'm going there too much. It's like, okay, I had 3 hours of sleep. Should I really go to the gym today? Well, okay, I do, because it was on my schedule and it's just what I do and it makes me feel better. And I never thought that I would have that problem where I go, okay, I'll work out tomorrow. And then when tomorrow comes, you know what, I'll work out the next day. It's like, man, I never thought that I would have that kind of relationship with working out. And part of it is exactly what you're saying. It's the ritual, the space. When you go to a gym, obviously, you have to be incredibly frustrated to do a couple of sets and then go home. Because everybody else is working out. You took the time to travel there. It's a lot of internal kind of subconscious signaling to yourself that I'm in the gym, I'm going to work out. But here, and of course, all of that is compounded by the fact that, home workouts are kind of a pain in the ass. So chest training, for example, is one of the more easily manageable things to do at home. And I have, about 80, 90 kilos of weight at home, so I can load up these weighted push-ups with a kind of chin-up belt. Very good, effective chest exercise. You could argue that you could even do them when you do have a gym in the gym, but it's a pain in the ass. And I have this floor that I'm scared that the chin-up belt is going to rip and I'm going to drop it on the floor. What's going to happen then? So oftentimes I prepare for a workout, and then sometimes I even do a set or two and I'm like, fuck this, I'm not going to do this. And I just sit back to my laptop, which is, man, it's really fucked up that I'm doing that, but I have to be honest.
Yeah, so I never really did skip workouts. I mean, I was still training 6 to 7 days per week, but, I just felt, I had to drag myself to start them. Whereas right now I'm looking forward to them, it's the highlight of my day and all that. But definitely I agree. And right now, this gives me a bit of a, or not necessarily different perspective, because I already knew this, but sort of reinforce the perspective that, many people do hire a personal trainer. And I was actually told by clients this, that they hire a personal trainer because then they have that accountability that, I have to be at the gym at 6, and, I can't just, quit because I promised that guy that I'll be there. And the downside of that is that when you have clients who are like that, when situation like this happens, when the gyms do close down, the reality is, and that's what I'm facing right now, is that they won't continue to pay me, because if they would have been motivated to train from home, they would have done it already anyway. And it doesn't matter that I would have, I would have come up with a plan to do some dicking around with body weight, or, lift some luggages, or lift some water bottles or stuff like that. Like, basically not one of my clients wanted that. So I was telling you this in private, that I became really frustrated with these messages and podcasts from, Lift the Bar and stuff like that, who are based in the UK, and other guys from the US, that, oh, you should just continue working with your clients as nothing has happened. Continue working with them, motivate them. Don't even mention cancellations. And I'm like, bitch, what? Like, don't even mention cancellations? That was the first thing that people messaged me with. Like, I've heard reports from other gyms in this city and in this country in general, like, people went back to their gyms and they demanded a refund for memberships that they had left. So basically, if they paid for a month and, the gyms had to close, they didn't accept that the membership will be, renewed or frozen until the gym is open. They were like, no, I still have a week left. I want 20% of my membership, whatever that was. Like, literally. Like, and that's why I get annoyed with people who are in the UK, or maybe it's a different culture, financially, maybe they're a bit better off. And they're like, well, don't even mention cancellations and continue work, provide them with options and Zoom meetings and Zoom workouts. And I tried all that, bitch. I offered all that. Nobody cares. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just a cultural thing. I don't know. But no, that wasn't an option for me.
Yeah. I've been actually surprised by how many kind of client applications I got still in this situation, but it's a weird time from that standpoint for sure. And that brings me to another thing that we've been chatting about, and I don't know, maybe you have some input, or I don't know what your feelings are about that. And I mean, maybe this part of it is different for you because you do have this gym access, and maybe even I will have it from next week onwards. But if I don't, I mean, honestly, this kind of weird state of mind that I found myself in really made me kind of scared about the future, because working out is something that I always looked at as something that will always be there for me. It's okay, my life could go in different ways. I mean, maybe I will go through tough shit in my relationships or in my finances or work stuff, this and that. But that thing that the gym is there, I go there, and for that hour and a half, I'm hitting the iron. I feel like I bettered myself. It's meditation time, whatever. That will always be a part of my life. And it's so absurd if you think about it. Like, you cannot go to a freaking gym. I mean, things can happen to you during your workout career, of course. Like, you could get injured, or maybe you will get so zeroed in or so hyper focused on working out that you will just become a dumb meathead that you go on a date or something and you cannot talk about anything else, just working out, which I've heard stories like that from girls, which is really funny. But so those things could happen, but the fact that you cannot go to a gym, I mean, that's something I never ever thought about. And if I think about kind of the trajectory for the future, that maybe, we won't have access to a gym like we did up until now for the next, maybe, I don't know, 2 years or something, which, I mean, I don't know, it could happen. I mean, if they keep things, things are getting locked down, they opened up again. And even if they get opened up again, the gyms might be the last thing to open, because it's sort of one of the more dangerous places to be from that standpoint. It's certainly more dangerous than a coffee place, for example. So, if that happens, I mean, what will be the future of my fitness? It could become something that just kind of gradually fades away, which kind of scares me. That reality really scares me. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I definitely understand your feelings as far as, the gym being there for me. If what you outlined would happen, I doubt it would be, because the owner wouldn't be able to keep paying the rent for 2 years, like, and make no income. Like, it's impossible. But the first thing, like, aside from, the practical reality, which is probably not going to happen, like, gyms won't be closed for 2 years. I made peace with myself that if shit really hit the fan and I had to move home to my parents and whatever, I would still be able to train with the dumbbells I have. I have a friend who has some stuff at home, and I could do some bench presses and stuff like that. And I would probably buy a pull-up attachment or whatever, hang it up somewhere, because then I could dig holes and whatever, because it would be at home, it would be no big deal and stuff like that. And I would still train, that for sure. Like, I don't know, I had this weird mindset right from the get-go that I was so fed up and so frustrated with how I looked that's why I didn't quit. Like, that's what I tell clients or people who want to sign up, that they are, so frustrated and then they quit. And I'm like, if you're frustrated right now and you quit, you will just get worse. Like, I had this idea in my mind that, yeah, I'm really useless at this and I suck at this, because people right now assume that, well, you're a personal trainer, so probably you were great at sports. And I'm like, no, I sucked. It took me, I don't know, I couldn't hip hinge. Like, I understand people who can't hip hinge. I was there. Anyway, I'm rambling. So basically, long story short, I would always train, so I wouldn't just quit. That's not an option for me. But just to put, well, I'm not sure what would happen in Macedonia, because apparently from what you told, it's pretty severe. But over here, what we are hoping for is that gyms will open, like I said, from the 15th of May, things will get eased up, and then we hope that we will be able to open 1st of June or 15th of June latest. What will happen probably is we are going to have to wear masks, which I don't know how we'll be able to train with a mask on, but whatever.
That would be funny, yeah.
Well, it's not about being funny, it's about being uncomfortable, and you can't breathe through that thing, so I don't know how you'll be able to do hard sets, but whatever. That's just the reality. And the other reality is there are going to be social distancing guidelines, and there's going to be a limited access. So we estimate that there will be around one person per 10 square meters of space. So, we'll have around 300. So we assume that we will have a limit of 30 people maximum at the same time, which is reasonable for us. So that's what we are thinking is going to happen. But we definitely hope that in 2 months at the latest, we will be able to open up. And just from an objective point of view, like if gyms stayed closed for 2 years, like first of all, people will get so fucking fat. And they would get, mental health would, like, the costs to health, let alone the economic consequences, the health consequences simply would outweigh anything that the virus could cause. Because the virus kills what? 1% of the population, let's say. The health consequences would kill far more than 1% of the population. And it wouldn't just kill the elderly. Like, and maybe that's just, me being whatever, naive, or me being biased, but I think that's a reality. Like, simply, I'm sure that chronic stuff wouldn't necessarily kill people, but simply the burden on the medical system for people who would perhaps get heart attacks and stuff like that at an elevated rate, because they are now sedentary and they've gotten far fatter than anyone would have expected. Like 2 years is a lot of time to get fat. So yeah, that's just, I can't see how things would get closed for so long.
Yeah, it's too bad that the smart authorities on this topic, like Michael Osterholm, who was on the Joe Rogan podcast, who kind of, I gather, is one of the top experts on this topic, because that, diseases and viruses, pandemics, and stuff like that are his expertise. But it's too bad that anytime I listen to him, he's just emphasizing that this is real, the virus is here to stay, it's going to kill a lot of people, there's a lot more infections to come, but he never addresses the question of what should we do about it. Like, what does he think about the lockdown? Does he think that locking down things until we have a vaccine or something, is that the best option? I mean, I kind of gather that he doesn't think that that's the case, but what does he think? Because all I can hear is people like Trump kind of, throwing out ideas. So it's just so hard to see what we could expect. But yeah, I mean, I didn't think either that it would be literally closed for 2 years nonstop, but that it would be kind of closed on and off. Like now, it was closed for a month, and it's so crazy that it's only been 5 weeks. I mean, I remember that my gym announced on the Facebook page that they have on the 13th of March. So it's basically been, 5 weeks, essentially? It seems like it's been forever. It's insane just how long it seemed like. So, I mean, if it's closed on and off like this, so maybe it will be open, I don't know, in the middle of May, and then in August they close it down again. I mean, effectively, from a psychological standpoint, it would almost be like it's closed for 2 years. So I don't know. I'm definitely thinking of getting more equipment for that case. And so I don't know. Let's say you had $2,000 to invest into gym equipment. So I don't know. What would you get? Like, what is something that beyond? I mean, obviously now you have dumbbells. I have dumbbells. So I don't know, a squat rack and a barbell and weights. Like, would that be kind of the best, like, first step investment? Or I don't know, what do you think?
So before I answer this, I actually looked up while you were talking. There's a good podcast on this. I don't know if you listen to it. It's Sam Harris's Making Sense podcast, episode 198, conversation with Paul Bloom. And there they actually discuss this topic that you brought up, which is, we won't be able, and we won't have to wait until, the virus just goes. We will have to find a way to live with it. And, they discuss what's probably going to happen, which is masks are probably going to stay maybe for 2 years. We probably won't shake hands for like 2 years and stuff like that. But anyway, that's just, for you and for the listeners, just check out for more.
Is that the one that he recorded like a couple of weeks ago?
It's 9 days ago, yeah.
9 days ago. Okay, that's okay. I'm curious.
Yeah, so that was a good one. As far as your question, definitely like a squat rack, one with a pull-up attachment, and also one where you can, either that comes with a dip attachment, or you can buy a separate dip attachment to it. I mentioned this to you, that there's an Italian guy, Marco Sterpa, who basically bought everything for like 2,000 euros. So he got, a squat rack with stuff I mentioned, a bench, adjustable dumbbells. Not adjustable dumbbells. I mean, dumbbells which can be loaded, dumbbell handlers, these strongman dumbbell handlers which can hold like 120 kilos, plates, and bar, of course. And so that would take care of it. The only thing I would add is, if you can get at a good price, and sometimes there are deals, if you can get also a small dual cable, like of course the Cybex Bravo would be ideal, but that's really expensive. Like Larry Doyle, I don't know if you know him from Ireland. I have a podcast with him, which hasn't been released, but anyway, so I recorded one with him, and he mentioned this to me, that he got basically for a couple thousand euros, he got a bunch of Cybex equipment, the all line, which are so good, and he got a Bravo for like 500 euros, I think, which is ridiculous, because they cost like 4,000 to 5,000 euros when the owner and I looked it up. So yeah, so if you can get some sort of cheap, ideally adjustable cable station, there you go. You have everything basically. Like you have free weights, and then you have the cable, and with that you can do everything. And that shouldn't be more than 2,000. Again, the cable is probably the last piece to get, and also the most, because barbells and plates don't really vary too much. Well, right now they do, but soon supplies will be restored, and then you will be able to buy them at a regular price again.
Yeah. I mean, probably that is the right answer there. So squat rack, weights, and I mean, you're definitely not gonna be in big trouble if you have that. Maybe a bench would also be nice. But yeah, I mean, the dual cable, probably that tacks up another like 1,200 or so at least. But yeah, I mean, if you have cables and a squat rack, I mean, really the gym on top of that is just a luxury.
Yeah. And again, of course, that's a couple thousand euros. I mean, that's not a small amount. Another thing which I've seen Brian Cron write a post about, even if gyms do open up and let's say then they close down, if you really have money, what you can do is while the gyms are open, a bunch of people who brought home equipment will just sell them because they won't use it. So then you can really get some bargains.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, I definitely wanted to address goal setting and, especially with regards to diet or nutrition, because of course we already discussed training and, people probably who listen probably train in some way or shape or form or capacity. But nutritional goal setting is something that we didn't really touch on yet.
Yeah. That's a good one. So I don't know. How do you want to tackle it? Do you want to talk about like what we do personally, or what we would like recommend to others?
We can do both. So I mentioned to you that I was thinking about. So I started losing some fat, and then we had this chat that maybe I should just stay at a comfortable body fat, which would be a bit lower than right now, but don't try to get very lean, but rather stay at a body fat where I'm comfortable, maybe at 14%, something like that, 13-14%, and then try to recomp, because I basically have as good of a recovery ability as I will ever have, because right now I can sleep pretty much as I want, And realistically, right now that I have access to a gym, I can also train as much as I want. So I was thinking that, maybe I should do that for like 6 weeks, or whatever. This was before this government thing was announced. So right now I'm thinking, if the gyms do open up in maybe 6 weeks, at the best case scenario, then I would definitely like to get leaner, simply, for marketing purposes. Like, if you are leaner, you look more professional, or, whatever you try to sell, it just offers greater buy-in for potential clients, or, you have a higher chance of actually people signing up if you do look more like, you know what you're talking about, not just if you just actually know what you're talking about, or if you actually look like you know what you're talking about, that's gonna be a big plus. So that's what I will continue to lose fat, basically, for the however long we are in lockdown, or whatever, however long until the gyms do open up, and most likely as well while we do open up.
Yeah, it's I mean, that is probably a good idea. This is something I've been thinking about a lot, and I mean, a topic that I covered in the past a couple of times is just what are good body fat percentages for people to strive for. And I think a good gauge for that is just something that Greg Doucette mentioned, actually, now that I think about it, is sort of the body fat percentage where you just don't give a shit. I mean, within reason at least, so not like when you're in full-on kind of binge mode and you're completely full of the wagon, but when you're like, pretty relaxed, you go out to eat pretty liberally at home, when you're eating your, make some reasonable choices, you eat a high-protein diet, and you're eating at somewhat regular times, so you're not just snacking on all kinds of crap all the time, but you're not particularly concerned with what's happening with your body comp. So kind of that body fat percentage, and then the body fat percentage where you like have to break your back to get down to, and basically the middle of those two. So, and I think that's a pretty good one to kind of gauge for most people. And then of course you can also take into account sort of where you tend to hang out, where you do pay some reasonable amount of attention, but it's not like your life has to revolve around being lean. And for me, I mean, I've always kind of said that between that, 12 to 15, 16% body fat, probably closer to that 16 now that I have a better gauge what realistically body fat percentages are. In the past, I would have said that that's what 12% body fat. Now I would say it's more like 15. But, for me, 7% body fat, it was like, okay, hardcore diet. I killed myself to get there, but I got there. And then, 18, 20, 22% body fat where I just, I don't pay any attention to energy density. I go out to eat very liberally. So, between the two, and what is that? 12-ish%, 15, something like that. So, I think that's a good way to gauge it for most people.
Yeah, same for me. Like, I was just telling this to you that my baseline diet pretty much would probably keep me at 10 to 12%, and then the occasional whatever YOLO days or cheats or whatever you want to call them, that's probably what's driving up my body fat percentage by 5% or something like that.
Yeah. No, exactly. For me too. It's I was when I got down to, okay, let's say 10% body fat, because that's kind of how everybody is thinking. So I won't make the disclaimer that in reality it's probably more like 12, 13. So let's say 10% body fat, where I got down in 2017, and that's when I did the best ever job in my life, perhaps, in actually managing my diet well once I was there. So I didn't rebound, I didn't have big cheat days and stuff like that. So I did a really good job, but I still ended up bouncing up to 12% or so. It was just over a much longer time frame. But it was almost like, okay, I'm doing a good job here, but there are just certain elements of my life that I don't like. Like my libido is kind of like, it's not really there, and it's actually much better if I have a couple of drinks and I'm like a bit stimulated, So, okay, I don't like this, and I'm kind of a bit food focused, and I'm not sleeping too well. So let's just, let's just eat a little bit more. So let's increase fat here and there, and that just kind of naturally ended up putting me at around 12, 13% over time. So it's kind of, I always ended up at that place. So as much as it appeals to me to try to stay leaner, and maybe in the future, I don't know, maybe in one day if I go on TRT or something like that and my hormones are managed no matter how lean I am, maybe I will try to stay super lean again, but it's just not something that's feasible for me at the moment.
Yeah, although this is a slightly separated conversation because we didn't really address goal setting. This is just, a side tangent that on body fat levels. As far as goal setting, for most people who are actually interested in their, health consciousness, we will definitely address the let's just not give a fuck approach a bit later. But for people who actually do give a fuck, at the worst, I would set maintaining weight as a goal. Like, okay, right now I can't really train, or even if I do train, it's very limited. Dieting probably not the best idea because I'm probably going to lose muscle mass. Also, if you're in whatever quarantine and you're bored, then it's probably a higher chance of, eating just out of boredom. Again, deficit's probably not the best idea. Again, going on a bulk, quote unquote, even though I start hating that term more and more, it's probably also not a good idea because, again, without proper training, you'll just get fat. So the best idea is let's just maintain our physique for now, which is easier to do both from a training perspective because, muscle is very easy to keep, relatively speaking, to gaining it in the first place. And also from a nutritional point of view, you can definitely obviously eat more when you maintain than when you're trying to lose weight. So I think that's a perfectly reasonable goal and attainable for most people who are interested, in health and fitness.
Yeah, and also I think this is something you mentioned before, that no matter how suboptimal your training is, if you're, 25+%, let's say, as a guy, I mean, there's zero issues with cutting, even pretty assertively, even if your training sucks. I mean, you could be losing some muscle, but I think you will be still happier if you're, let's say, at least at 17% body fat and not 27, right? So.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I should have added the caveat that this is with the caveat that you are at a healthy body fat already, so not more than maybe 20% as a male.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, kind of a funny trivia that I want to tell people. Look, this is going to be the podcast where I'm just going to be honest. Zero extra effort to make myself look better than I am. Boredom eating has been an issue for me during this quarantine. I will be honest. It's not... So basically the issue is that I don't have the things that are there as a natural and very powerful way to distract me, to stimulate me. So, for example, you get hungry during the day a little bit, and it's not the crazy hunger pang. It's not like, oh my god, lethargy, I'm starving away, hardcore dieting type hunger. It's just, you already digested your previous meal, your stomach is getting a little bit empty, so it's like I could eat something. It's not even necessarily hunger. It's just I could eat. Now, normally when you're out and about, you do things, you go for walks, or maybe you go to the gym, you're there, you're lifting the heavy iron, so obviously you're not going to eat while you're doing that, or you're at work, you're distracted by things, or you go grab a coffee with someone, you're distracted by that, and then all of a sudden you look up and holy shit, I really got hungry now, let's go and eat something. Now I don't get to that point often because it's like, shit, I could eat something. What am I doing right now? Playing FIFA. And the same FIFA that I played like 15 billion hours with already. It's nothing completely new or nothing too new, nothing that really stimulates me. So let's go and eat something. So I did have that issue, so I will be honest about that. So actually what I started doing is I started eating a low carb, higher fat, pretty bland diet recently because, and honestly, it's working pretty well. Like, I eat when I'm hungry, but I'm not going to get up and boredom eat some canned sardines and some, cucumbers. It's just not something. But even if I was eating, say, some frozen berries and some, low-fat protein pudding or something, I could get up and boredom eat that. But this thing, not so much, and it's actually working pretty well. So that might be something that's interesting for people.
Do food deliveries work in Macedonia?
I don't know. I know that grocery stores, some do deliveries, but food delivery doesn't.
Yeah, so I asked because you obviously know this, but last night, so I wouldn't call it boredom eating, but I still have episodes of emotional eating. I just call them emotional eating because that's what it is. Like I said, it's what's probably keeping me, 5% higher than I would have to be from a physiological point of view. It's basically impulsive eating, I guess, and right now it's impulsive food delivery, and that's what I asked. It's not bad. I mean, I don't really do it, but even every now and again, it's enough. Like, for example, this past week when it's been Easter, I got a huge, collage, whatever. It's basically, I don't even know what to call it. It's sweet bread, basically, filled with, walnuts and stuff. And I ate a bunch of that because I received it for free. And then last night I basically broke a record because this was the biggest pizza I ever ate. So it's been termed a giant, and I was like, I'm really curious, like, how does a giant pizza look like? Well, it turns out it really is giant. Like, in photo it doesn't look that bad, like it doesn't do it justice, but it basically is the box is so big, it literally didn't fit in the door. Like, I would have to, turn it sideways to bring it in. Like, it's that big, and it's around 57 centimeter in diameter, so 22, 23 inches, something like that. It was more than 2 kilos in weight. Calories, I have no idea. It's probably been, I don't know, 6,000 maybe. I don't know.
6,000 just that pizza?
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
I mean, it's a 2 kilo pizza. I mean, what would it...
Oh, 2 kilo. Well, yeah.
I mean, I was just doing the math. Like, one usual large, which is like a kilo, it probably has 3,000. And this one probably had like double that. So yeah, so I ate that last night. And so yeah, I definitely understand people who do struggle with, boredom eating and whatever. But again, I'm trying to lose weight, and I will. So that's why I said that, just simply maintaining your weight is reasonable, because even if you do have episodes like this once or twice per week, if overall your diet is okay, you can definitely still maintain your physique and your whatever body composition. The issue arises when you get into Stephanie Buttermore's approach, who is like, let's just go all in quarantine, and you start abandoning all structure, and you do what I did last night, which is I ate 7,000 calories worth of pizza, and the next day you're like, oh, it doesn't matter because it's quarantine, and I've given myself permission to eat, so today I'm going to do it again. And also you fill your house with junk food, because this is what Stephanie Buttermore said, you can't decide what to eat during this time period, which I don't know how it works. Like, I don't know, maybe in Canada or wherever she lives, Florida, people like put guns to your head and you're basically forced to buy junk food at the store. Right now, I don't understand how that works, because as far as I know, you are free to go into a grocery store and buy what you want, and you can actually eat what you want, unless, Jeff Nippers forces her to eat candy, which I wouldn't assume he does.
What's the name of that? The two kids that are trapped in the big candy house, in the forest.
Yeah, Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah.
Yeah, but seriously, like, this is. I'm not trying to pick on Stephanie, but I just watched a Greg Doucette video. I don't watch her. I just watched Greg Doucette, and he did a video on her, and I couldn't believe the stuff she was saying. They're like. I apologize if I don't remember exactly, because it's been like a week, but basically her 4 steps or 4 tips for people who deal with their diet during the quarantine was, just give yourself permission to eat. It's okay to eat. And then don't weigh yourself, don't monitor yourself at all, because that's not going to do your mental health good. So, don't check your body, don't weigh yourself, don't do anything like that. She did mention exercise, which is good, but then, she said stuff like, you can't really control what you eat, or we all struggle with boredom eating, and that's completely fine. And like I said, she also had her house filled with, it looked like basically if I went to the grocery store and I just brought the entire aisle of chocolate and candy home. Like, that's how it looked like. Greg said the same thing. He said, like, I didn't eat that much junk food in 10 years. Like, yeah. I didn't have that much junk food in ever. Like, if I summed up the junk food I had throughout all my life, I wouldn't have that much. Like, I just don't understand her. Like, you can definitely feel free to stop me, and I'm just annoyed, and I don't understand, because I know how people think, and they are going to use this as justification that, oh, Stephanie said it's okay. And from my own perspective, like, she said that, it's not good for your mental health to weigh yourself during time like these. You know what's not good for my mental health? To not weigh myself. And to find out that 3 months from now, because I didn't weigh myself, because I didn't look in the mirror, because I didn't monitor myself at all, I gained like 15 kilos. That's what's not gonna be not good for my mental health. Not that I do maintain some semblance of discipline and I do stick to my diet, and heaven forbid I actually also keep my health goals in mind. Like, I just don't understand. And if it's like your situation is worse like mine, we are still able to go out. Like, if it was the same in the US, like if she lives in Florida is, I don't know if you do follow the US situation. I do, because I do know this, because the UFC is going to be holding events in Florida. It's basically the most relaxed state in the whole fucking US. Like, they have beaches are open in Florida. Like, if there is a place where you have no excuse to not keep your health and fitness in check, it's fucking Florida. Again, I don't know if she still lives there. I know she did for a while. So maybe she doesn't. I don't know. But if she does live in Florida, that's the last place to make excuses. That would be the easiest place to keep your health and fitness, because you are allowed to go outside. You can walk on the beach, for fuck's sake.
Yeah. All right. So I think this is a perfect way to close the podcast. Just kidding. Yeah. So I'll react now before everybody, all the people that don't agree with your closing the the episode. But it's interesting. My thinking has changed over time somewhat on the Stephanie Buttermore situation. So when I first saw her all-in kind of thing, then first of all, I think in kind of the last month of my photo shoot diet. So at that time, I had very, very little sympathy for what she was doing. I mean, I was, like dying from those like 2,200 calories and the 15 to 20K steps that I was doing every day, plus the 7 days a week, weight training and not being able to sleep and whatever. And I was like, man, if I could just have another bag of strawberries a day, life would be so much better. Or if in the morning, instead of 2 eggs, I could have 3. Oh my goodness. And then when I started adding back in calories and I could eat 3 eggs in the morning and not just strawberries, but also some blueberries, I felt like I was living the life. So when I saw that she had to eat 5,000 calories every day for several months and she was saying that was needed, I had very little sympathy. And even later, I mean, when I was done with my diet and I was doing really well in the beginning, I was very conservative with how I was adding back in calories. I was very judgmental towards her. Over time, since I experienced a pretty ugly, period after the diet where, I was doing well from the standpoint that I was limiting myself to fruits and veggies and stuff like that. But I was eating that so uncontrollably that, I was probably still clocking, 4,500 calories on many days just from fruits and veggies because it was just uncontrolled. And that's when I experienced that it's not just about eating enough calories to be in a small surplus or to not be in a deficit anymore. There is basically a certain amount of psychological rebound that you experience when it's not just about eating enough calories, it's just about not feeling like you did when you were restricted. And it's almost like a slingshot. Like you pull that rubber band and you let it go and it just smacks you in the face. And even months later, so now, for example, I mean, I, went up, the mid, probably approaching the high teens at this point. And I was like, okay, you know what? This is enough. I mean, come on. My diet was 6 months ago. Let's pull back a little bit and let's cut back a bit. So let's do, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks of deficit eating. And honestly, I could just not get myself to do it. And that was shocking to me because even when I was, maybe when I was the deepest into my kind of disordered eating, perma-cutting type cycles, then I experienced things like that. But certainly for the last 3 years, I had not had anything like this. I was always I could just like click my fingers and I could get into a deficit and I would follow through with it. I was kind of judgmental towards people who were not able to stick to a deficit even for a couple of weeks. And I could just not stick to that freaking deficit because I had almost like this PTSD type thing where, oh my goodness, it just reminds me of the freaking diet. I would go to bed even slightly hungry and it's like, oh my goodness, I can just not freaking take this, because all those memories would kick in. And so the reason I'm saying all of this is because Stephanie was someone who kept herself incredibly, incredibly lean for a very long time. I mean, she was, almost shredded. And I think that she has gotten used to a lifestyle where it was all about ignoring her hunger signals, pushing through hunger, using all kinds of creative ways to push through hunger, to suppress her appetite. A lot of things behind the scenes that we did not know about, probably. Who knows how her sex drive was, how she was able to sleep at night, and all of those things. And I think that once she started doing that all-in thing, who knows, maybe at certain times she had the idea that she should cut back a little bit. I gained enough weight. Let's try to control things. And probably that's when she realized just how much she was suffering before. It's almost like, when you're sleep deprived for months on end, you kind of don't realize how shit you feel. But once you had a couple of nights of good sleep, then you realize how much it sucked. Or it is true of any kind of situation. Probably when we get out of the lockdown and we are able to, sit into a coffee place, have a cup of coffee and whatever, we can go to a bar, watch a football game. That's when we're going to realize how much it sucked to be in a lockdown. So I have definitely more sympathy towards her with what she's going through. And yes, all the logic speaks against her, like why does she have to eat junk food? But probably there is something to the idea that she was restricting herself from everything for so long that just the idea of not eating junk food just reminds her of that crazy restrictive lifestyle that she was having. So I'm still not saying with all of that it is the right thing and she should just go ham on all the junk food. I'm just saying that she's probably in a very, very difficult situation, to the point where she probably would benefit greatly from actual counseling, and that's also tricky because finding an actual expert or someone who specializes in that is also a tricky thing, because if you just go to a registered dietitian or you go to a psychologist, they will not understand. It's like, well, just eat as much as you feel like you need and just stop when you're full. It's the type of psychological struggle that physique competitors and people that are really deep into fitness go through, and all of that combined with the weird hunger signals and the disordered eating, it's a very unique niche thing. Like, I don't think it's easy to find actual help in that regard. So I'm just saying I feel for her, because I think she is in a really difficult situation. Where I don't sympathize with her as much is when she created this cult out of this, and she started putting that out there as something that not everybody should be doing, but you have food issues, just go all in. I think that's a dangerous message, and I sympathize with that as well to some extent, because when you're doing something, it's almost like you have to say that to other people as well, that that's the right thing to do, because it kind of reaffirms what you're doing. So I feel for her. I also blame her a little bit, but just this dieting experience that I was through definitely makes me see this from a different light than I saw compared to how I was seeing it before. So that would be my long response.
Okay, so with that, or to that, I will probably give a similarly long response back. So first off, I think I need to clarify a couple of things, because people will just think that I'm misogynist and I hate her. And first of all, even a couple of minutes ago, we were discussing body fat levels. I said, calm down to a level I feel comfortable at. Like, I do not recommend anyone to keep, 5% below their natural set point or settling point where they feel like a functioning human. Like, even my colleague who who I'm talking about, he is very lean. I mentioned Stephanie, and she was I showed a couple of pictures of a girl we both sort of knew. Anyways, long story, but she did the same thing basically, and she got really, really shredded and lost her cycle, and now she basically went up like 20 kilos. And my colleague and I were both like, okay, that was unreasonable, but there's a lot of leeway between shredded and obese. Like, you could, find the sweet spot where you don't feel like shit, but you're also kind of healthy. So that's one thing. The my second point, or to what you said, is I am not judging her. Like, honestly, I do not care about her per se. I wish her all the best. I really feel for her, and I really do hope that she finds a person who can help her mentally and all that. Like, this is not anything. I am not attacking her personally. What I am attacking is the advice she puts out to hundreds of thousands of people. Like, when you are someone who is being followed by 400,000 people or 500,000, however many followers she has, you need to think about the messaging you put out, right? Like, this is like, you being the, and for example, Matthew Walker was saying this, that, heads of states shouldn't say things like, I only sleep, 2 hours per day, and that's fine. Like, they might not wish to say that you should as well sleep only 2 hours, but people will inherently take this as advice that, well, if he's okay, then I should probably do the same. But in that video, she actually, like, the video is about, her strategies and what she recommends for people. Like, I'm not judging her, I'm judging the message she put out for her followers. Like, if she was like, listen, this is my personal issue, this is what I'm going through, but for you, for most people, what I would recommend is, and then follow up with some reasonable advice, that would be perfect. But she didn't do that. She was like, well, this is what all of you should do. And that's what I have issues with, This, I think you don't, like, think about it yourself. Like, you had this issue, right? But I would assume that you wouldn't just recommend to everyone who didn't go through this to be like, well, whatever, don't even bother dieting because, I went through this phase and right now I seem to have some bad experiences that I haven't dealt with. So, that means that no one can lose weight and diets just fail. Like, that's not the same thing, So, again, what I take issue with is her, what I consider irresponsible messaging for hundreds of thousands of people. And I did receive, and Jesus, I don't have a large following by any amount, but I did receive between 5 to 10 messages from women who were like, I'm so happy that someone actually put this out because I did follow her approach and I got fat and I was just unhappy. And then I sort of found the middle road and I started, listening to my body, but also started making some decent food choices, and I suddenly dropped 5 to 6 kilos, and now I'm much happier and whatnot. Just respond to what I said so far, and then we can continue this.
Yeah, I agree with that. That it's I think that's the only thing that I fault her for, is that she's not honest probably with herself. And I think that's often the issue of highly intelligent people, which she is, that they're very good at convincing themselves and they're also very good at convincing others by extension of that. So I think instead of recognizing that, wow, this is the fact that I'm eating this many calories for weeks and weeks on end and my hunger signals are still not back to normal, I still don't have the urge to eat less. Wow. That's scary. And when I experienced things similar to that, that was very scary for me. And for example, I addressed it in a YouTube video. Didn't talk about it that much because, for one, I was scared about where that's going to lead. Also slightly embarrassed that, wow, I just finished this diet and now this is happening. Even though I was very well prepared for what could happen. I heard about all the horror stories out there about how people rebounded, then it still kind of ended up happening to me, or at least it began happening to me. It was very scary. And I think, there's many approaches that you can take at this point. You can educate yourself and hope that you can kind of solve this on your own, or you can reach out for help. And I think she chose a third option, which is, I think, kind of the worst, is that not only did she try to solve it on her own in a questionable potentially acceptable, maybe for her the only way that she could cope with it. I will be willing to kind of give her the benefit of doubt, especially based on some of my own experiences, that really was the only option for her, whatever. But to put that out there as something that, is a general recommendation for everyone. Also, this is not something that she's doing intentionally, but it kind of works out for her. I mean, I think she's a beautiful woman. And I actually think she actually looks way better this way than when she was ripped and skinny. Honestly, anytime a video of hers comes up and I'm so bored that I actually click on it, I watch her speak. Obviously, she's also good with makeup, but I'm like, wow, this is one hell of a beautiful human being. And her body fat distribution is probably pretty good. Her skin is very nice and tight with these curves and everything. A lot of other women won't have the same kind of response from a physique standpoint to this. So a lot of people will be very, very disappointed if they go down the same road when, I don't want to be too crude here, but, that's another thing. She's not being intentionally disingenuous in that way, but it is kind of disingenuous at the end of the day.
Yeah, and exactly. And this was one of the main points that Greg Doucette brought up in the original video he did about her, which no one watched who started criticizing Greg, because if they would have watched the video, it was a very reasonable response. And this is one of the points brought up by Greg. He was like, listen, she is basically the best case scenario for this. Like you said yourself, she's a very beautiful woman, and she also she put on an insane amount of weight compared to how she looks, which of course speaks about how underweight she kept herself. No doubt. But if most women try to pull this off, and how much weight did she gain? 15 kilos, 20 kilos? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think probably around 20 kilos.
Okay, so most women, if they gain 20 kilos, they will not love their bodies. Maybe this is just me being judgmental. Okay, fine, whatever. If you do wish to do the experiment, do it. Just speaking from my own point of view, I would not be happy with my body if I gain 20 kilos from here. Now, of course, I'm not at 6% body fat, so I don't need to do that. I'm just saying that saying stuff like, your mental health will thank you if you do not check your body. That's not stuff you can, again, if you do allow me, then I will then present my anti-Stephanie Buttermore strategy, or what I would recommend for people to actually do with their diets during this lockdown. I wanted to mention earlier that when you were talking about, she this was the strategy she came up with to deal with her eating issues. Maybe it's not the best analogy, but what thought popped into my mind was if someone has alcohol abuse issues, for example, or alcohol issues, control issues, you don't fill your house with alcohol, 20 different beverages, and no one would say that's reasonable to say that, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to drink as much as I want, whenever I want, until I start hating alcohol. Or until I think that, I've had enough, I don't want to drink anymore. It's not going to end well, and I know that alcohol is in food, but if you do get into those behaviors with junk food, I know for myself, I've gotten a year ago into a habit. Once you start ordering food regularly, it's very easy. It becomes a habit. You're used to, it's Tuesday night, I come home, and I'm just going to order a pizza. It becomes a habit, and you start doing that. And it's the same with junk food. If you get used to, I always have junk food around. Whenever I'm bored, I, start eating junk food. And then your brain creates this association and this habit. And it becomes a sort of Pavlovian conditioning that bored, junk, bored, junk, bored, junk. And again, I'm not James Clear. I'm not an expert on habits. It's just, my experience, basically. This is what's going to happen. And then you will start saying things like, well, I listen to my body, and my body says it wants junk. No, it's a habit that you created. It was your choice. At first, it was a choice. Now it's a habit, and it sucks. But you created this monster in the first place. If you listen to Jordan Peterson, for example, who has been a therapist for many, many years, he said the same thing. Listen, how do you get anything? He was talking about what does it mean to pray and make a wish. He said making a wish doesn't mean that, oh, or wanting something. He was like, it's not, oh, I want something and then don't do anything. He was like, if you do want something, that means you will do everything that's required to get that.
Yeah.
And that might mean sacrificing 50 other things. But no one talks about that in definitely she doesn't talk about it that way. And Jordan was also saying that, imagine if you had basically, if you don't keep your promises or your rules with yourself. Like he said, what's the best thing about tables? They don't change their heights. So when children go under a table and they raise their heads and they hit the table, they learn that, I probably shouldn't crawl under or walk under crawl, I guess they're crawling under a table, and then because I will hit myself. But imagine if the table suddenly changed height. They will never learn. Like this is the same with like junk food. If you have these rules and you never respect them, you can't. We discussed this in another podcast that you said this. I remember you telling me this, that he was like, you said that once you can't really trust yourself after a while if you constantly break your diet. If you decide that now I'm going to diet, and then 2 days later you cheat, and then you start the diet again, and then you cheat again, you're like, I can't trust myself. Like my promises or my word means nothing. Like I know this has been a long tangent, but all I'm trying to say with this is that you don't fix your eating issues or whatever emotional eating issues by surrounding yourself with all the junk food in the world, and the strategy isn't to just eat it whenever you want and in any amount you want it.
Yeah, I think you're right about all of that. And that's one thing that I would probably still be somewhat critical about the way she went about things. And again, maybe she has pushed herself to a point where she actually needed like a 5,000 calorie influx, and the only way she can get that is through junk food. So whatever. I don't want to dismiss her situation, but in general, like I would still be somewhat critical about the idea that if you have to go all in and you have to basically remove restrictions and let your body decide how much extra calories it needs, I mean, I think you should still do it from foods that in the future, if in the future you still want to hold on to a leaner physique and you still want to live this fitness, healthy kind of lifestyle, the foods that will be a part of that should also be the foods that are gonna take you on this all-in kind of journey. So if you eat ice cream and pizza and stuff like that, and that's how you're gaining 20 kilos, I mean, what makes you think that at some point your body is gonna say, you know what, okay, now let's make you gravitate back towards your natural set point. That's not gonna happen with ice cream and pizza. And that's because that was kind of her idea. That's how she explained it, that, you know what, you were critical of me, that I gained, 30 or 40 pounds or whatever, but trust me, my body is gonna take me back to its natural set point after years of restriction. That's all good, but eat eggs and avocado and fatty fish and fruits and stuff like that. Yes, with that, you might still be in 1,000 calorie surplus if your body really needs it. But yes, at a certain point, just simply because the palatability is not so overwhelming, your body is kind of going to say at one point that, you know what, we've had enough. Now we are going to be in a 500 calorie surplus, eventually in a 200, and maybe eventually at maintenance. Over time, maybe in a deficit even. That's just how your kind of settling point is going to kind of pull you back. And that definitely does happen. So that would be kind of one thing that I would actually be critical about as well, that it's somewhat perhaps delusional. And, I have done things like that in the past as well. And, like you said, there is no such thing as eating so much junk food that you will be sick of it. You might be sick of it for that night when you're binging on the couch, but as soon as your stomach gets empty, as soon as that food is gone from your stomach, you took a couple of shits, your craving is just as strong for those, even stronger, arguably, than they were before.
Yeah, and not just that. I mean, you're definitely right with that, and I do want to get back to that strategy, but she keeps like 100 types. Like you will never get sick of all of them. Like she might get sick of one flavored Oreo, but she has like 50. She might get a sick one cereal, but she has 15 other options. Like, you're bombarding your brain with these. Like, Stefan Guiene would probably pull his hair out of all of them from his head if he saw that. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, Jordan said the same thing again. It just keeps, that guy has such amazing practical insight into stuff like this. But he said the same thing about, decisions and stuff like that. Like, don't reinforce something you don't want to repeat, basically. Like, you don't want to see in your future. Like, if you want to get rid of a habit, don't keep doing it again, over and over again. And as far as a strategy of coming out from a diet, like, look around, look at what Greg Doucette says, look at what my colleagues does the same. Like, he said the same thing. He has the same base diet, basically. He takes some of the stuff out. Like, for example, at the end of his contest prep, he doesn't really eat fruit because it's not as filling for him, and minor stuff like that. But during his quote-unquote off-season or walk-around shape, which, as you've seen, it's very lean, he eats the same stuff. Now, he has a preference for higher fat, lower carb diets, but he still eats his fruits, he still eats rice, and he still eats oats and stuff like that, and potatoes. Like, he has a very solid diet base, and that's what everyone should do. And your body doesn't have a junk food deficit. Your body has energy deficit. Yeah, it needs more calories, fine. It needs more nutrients, fine. You've starved your body of nutrients and energy overall, okay. You haven't starved your body of Oreos. Like, your body isn't screaming, oh my goodness, I want Oreos. No, that's you seeing the Oreo in the store, and clever marketing and stuff like that, and association which have been created. Like, think about it. Why do I not ever crave sushi? Because I never had it. I have no idea how it tastes. Yeah. Now, if I tried it, for example, I might find out that it's delicious, and then I would start craving it, And this is one thing that I disagree. For example, people say that, you should eat a small bit of the foods, every day, and then you'll be fine. No, I actually found the opposite. Like, if I haven't had something in months, I forget how it tastes. But if I start eating it every day, all I can think about is that food, because it's going to taste delicious. And my brain is hardwired to seek out calorie-dense foods, and high in sugar and high in fat and stuff like that. And of course, people can seek out Stefan Guiene's work for more information on that, but it's not a good strategy. This is a great strategy to get fat. And if that's what you want, again, I'm not judging anyone. We are not judging anyone. If that's what you want, fine. We are talking about people who want to maintain a lean physique. This is not the way to go about it.
Yeah. And again, like, not to give these disclaimers like every 2 seconds, but the only thing that makes me, so for example, if I sat down with Stephanie, I could see myself by the end of a conversation being like, you know what, Stephanie, you were in some deep shit when you went on this all-out thing. And, it's often when you get down to, for example, 6% body fat as a bodybuilder or something, probably secretly, a lot of them still have a lot of plans about how they're going to go about their diet afterwards. But to plan for that, it's almost like planning on how you're going to behave when you shoot some heroin or something. It's like, I'm going to still be reasonable once the heroin is in my system. It's like, no, you cannot predict how you're going to be like at that time. Or even if you're like super drunk or something, you're going to be a different person. The very brain that you're thinking with now is going to be a different animal at that time. So, it's kind of like that in this case. So, I mean, I've experienced some really weird shit in the past couple of months as a result of the diet and what happened afterwards. So, just for a long time, just going for a walk on a nice sunny day, just going on the same routes that I took when I got in my 15K steps during my diet. I mean, honestly, I felt sick in my stomach just walking that way. It's like, oh my goodness, not this shit again, even though I just wanted to go for a freaking walk. So some really weird things can happen. So I could see that for her, just simply eating like salads and veggies and stuff like that and lean protein, it just reminds her of all that shit that she was in. But anyway, the other thing that was something that I was rolling my eyes on in her approach is that while she was lean, she had these cheat meals and cheat days, and she was filming them, and I ate whatever I wanted for for 24 hours, and oh my God, I ate 7,000 calories and I'm only, 50 kilos. And that, yeah, that is essentially just reinforcing that whole thing that my day-to-day diet sucks. This is something I'm only doing because I want to stay lean. But if I really did what I wanted, this is all the junk crap that I would eat. And I think that already kind of puts you in that state of mind that just sets you up for a lot of shit. So that's another thing that I would be kind of critical about.
Yeah, so I obviously don't have experience with one being so lean and two what she's going through, so I can't comment on that. But I do have experience with emotional eating. I do have experience with binge eating episodes, although I don't like to call it binge eating because then it starts, putting it like in a medical term and starts creating, like it sounds like a disease and whatever. Like, for example, I mentioned this to you in private, like last night's pizza experience. If I wanted to follow this Stephanie Buttermore approach, I would have been like, so, guys, last night I already ate like 2,500 calories and I was perfectly satisfied. But then, an impulse hit me and I downloaded the Food Panda app and I ordered a giant pizza and I ate another 6,000 calories, which were completely unnecessary. But that's completely fine because, we're in a quarantine and stuff like that is really justifiable because we're in a quarantine and then suddenly our health doesn't matter anymore and it's okay. So if you ever in a situation like this, you can think about me. And if you're not convinced that you should order a pizza, just, I give you permission. Do it. You can do it. It's okay. It doesn't matter. You'll be fine. The universe will love you. We are all going to love you. Like, no, no. Like, if, as I mentioned this to you, if, like, let's see, my girlfriend wanted to this, you know what I would have said? I would have given her 2 virtual slaps. I'm not saying slap your boyfriend or girlfriend. I would have given her like 2 metaphorical slaps. I would be like, what are you talking about? Shut up, silly. This is just emotional, whatever. Look at it. You're already full. Like, you're not hungry. You're just bored. Like, let's either go to sleep or watch something. Like, in the morning, you will wake up and you will be thankful that you didn't order that pizza. Or if you do, you will regret it in the morning, which is what I did today. I did regret it because I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, I'm so stupid. Why did I do that? Now I ruined a week's worth of progress. And it sucks. And no, it didn't make me happy. And maybe that's whatever. Maybe I have issues and Stephanie is right. Who knows? I don't know. But what I'm saying is we need to separate our subjective experience with objective advice that we are giving out to people. And again, I keep coming back to this because this is my biggest issue with her. Like, if you do want to present your case study, whatever, and let people draw their own conclusions or whatever, that's fine. That's perfectly okay. But if you start playing the role model or if you start giving advice to hundreds of thousands of people, it's just irresponsible. So finally, I will present my anti-Stephanie Buttermore strategy, what people should actually do with their diets, in my opinion. So first of all, not give a fuck. Definitely okay. So if you're someone who doesn't really or is sufficiently overburdened by this whole experience that doesn't really have the mental bandwidth to also care about their health or fitness or whatever, they'll be like, listen, I understand I will gain some weight. That's okay. I'm fine with that trade-off. I will do my best to get back to, my old habits once this stuff is over. I'm okay. I've accepted I will gain some weight. That's fine. Awesome. Do what you want. I won't even comment on that. But for people who actually want to, they're like, this period sucks, but at least what I can do is, not also ruin my physique and my health goals at the same time. What I recommend is, first of all, you do control or you can control what you eat. So when you go to a grocery store, only buy stuff you actually want to eat and are actually health promoting. Stuff that actually will help you in that predetermined goal, which you have established for yourself. Again, this is something that you have to establish for yourself. Just write it down. What do I want out of this couple-month period? If your goal is, listen, I want to maintain my current body fat level, I do not want to gain body fat, that's a perfect reason. But I swear to you, this is such a fucked up society. Like, it has become politically incorrect to say stuff like, I actually do want to stay lean, or I actually do not want to gain weight during this quarantine. Like, I swear, 99% of the messages I see is, it's okay to gain weight. Don't even worry about it. You already have plenty on your mind. It's okay. Like, that's one side of the coin. Where's the other side? It's also okay to not want to gain weight. It's also okay to not want to completely abandon everything, Like, it's crazy. But anyway, so going back. So if you decided that, then you do go to a grocery store and you buy only stuff you want to eat. That's what you're going to keep in the fridge. That's what's going to be in the pantry. That's what's going to be around when you're hungry. That's all you're going to see. You can also, of course, you have to negotiate with your girlfriend, boyfriend, if you live with someone else. But let's suppose for now that you do live with someone who has the same goal as yourself. Okay, you filled your house with healthy stuff. Then the second, you do monitor your body composition. You do weigh yourself either daily or bi-weekly at least, because you've determined that you do not want to gain weight. So if you see the scale go up, that goes against your predetermined goal. So if you do that, then you have to adjust something, because otherwise, if you do not monitor your progress or your body composition, you have no idea what's going on. So you do take photos every month or so. You do measure yourself on the scale. You try to stay at the same body weight. And then, if you do crave some junk, then you can negotiate with your significant other. Listen, we would like to eat ice cream. Oh, okay, awesome. We will go out to the store. We've decided beforehand. We want to eat ice cream, which means we will not see some random cake and buy the cake, because why the fuck not? We said we only wanted to eat ice cream, then we are going to go out and buy ice cream. We will decide beforehand, how much, because I've also done this. I'm talking from experience as well. Like, I've done this. We went out to buy one and I brought home 3 liters of ice cream and I ate all 3 because, hey, I bought it, so why not eat it? And then I regretted it. So if you do decide to eat, a liter of, like, honestly, no one needs to eat 3 liters of ice cream. Like, past the first maybe half liter, let's say, okay, maybe the first liter. The rest of that, I just ate it because it was there and I didn't really feel like throwing food out because, again, childhood, whatever. You have to eat. You have to finish your meals, whatever. So when you go out, this is the main idea. Like, you have to decide if you do want some treats, then you decide beforehand what it is. You go out, you buy it in the quantities you do want to eat. You come home, you eat it. You enjoy it, you share it with your partner, and that's perfectly fine. Like, I'm not saying you can't eat anything, but just don't keep it around. Like, what's the point? And what else did she say? Of course, exercise is good, so that's recommended. And that's also something else I would recommend. Make it, again, these are things you should probably write down, and then you should stick to them. Like, decide how many days per week you want to work out, and then stick to it. Like, don't make anything unreasonable. But I also don't like this talk. Well, if you don't feel like training, then just don't train. Okay, but then you start going down into a spiral, which doesn't really help. Like, decide before. If you commit to 3 workouts per week, good. Then you do commit to them, but you also stick to them. I think I remember too long, so you can definitely interject.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with all of that. It's I think this is a time now when we have to be compassionate and we have to be understanding. So I think the going overzealous with the message that nothing matters, just do whatever you feel like and everything is okay, it can get to a point where it's almost like you're encouraging that kind of behavior. You definitely don't have to do that. Eating healthy, controlling your body weight, exercising, those are all good things to do. So that should be the default recommendation. That said, this is a tough time. We are like locked in freaking apartments with food all day. So if someone struggles with that, it's not something to be encouraged, but something to be understood. And the other side of all of this is when I see some really smart individuals in quotation marks making posts on Facebook like, I don't understand how people can overeat during this time. I mean, you're not out in restaurants, you're not eating junk food. Like food like someone even said it in a sentence like, food should be used sparingly. It's like, okay, man, I get it that should be the default recommendation. Like you're less active, you're building less muscle, like be at maintenance at most. Yeah, sure, I get all of that. But to say that you don't understand it, wow. I hope you're not a fitness professional. Well, that's all I can say. Because if you are, my goodness, you must be a terrible coach. Like you understand zero things about how people tick. You must be a naturally skinny person or something. Congratulations for you. But you must not have seen any people interacting with food in your life. So that's kind of the other end of all of this. But yeah, I agree with you. Like if your goal is to be fit and whatever, don't kid yourself. Buy the stuff in the store that you're intending on eating. And once you make a commitment to something, think long and hard whether you're ready to make that commitment. If you need some accountability, then, hire a coach or something, write it down for yourself on a paper or something, or take a morning to journal about these things. Like, you signal yourself basically that you're actually serious about all of these things, because committing to things and then quitting them is terrible for your self-confidence. I mean, I have been long enough in this game and I've been kind of lean for many enough times where my trust in myself is not that easily shaken. But this experience that I had a couple of weeks ago, where I went on a diet for 1 day and then I was off the diet for the next week and then back on the diet again for 2 days and off for 2 weeks. That was not good for my self-confidence for sure. I mean, now I already kind of have that feeling of, man, if I'm going to do this, for example, this like lower carb thing, then I better be serious about it, because if I quit this again, that's going to be terrible for my self-confidence. So that's just something to keep in mind, because like you can lose many things in life, but to lose your trust in yourself, that should be the last thing to go.
Yeah, and you're definitely right, and I definitely understand. I mean, shit, I'm the most understanding person. Like I said, I still have emotional eating issues. I know what it's like to engorge yourself with delicious tasting food and satisfy some emotional issues with food. I mean, shit, that's all I've known for the first 15 years of my life, basically. Like, I wasn't eating food for nutritional value. I was eating it for pleasure. Like, all I cared about if it tasted good. I definitely understand all that. But simply going from a different point of view, times are tough right now, because we are in a lockdown, but also economy most likely will take a turn for the worse. Last time I checked, junk food isn't free. Like, buying all that junk food is costing you a lot of money. Like, I approach it from this point of view as well. Like, I beat myself up on pizza because of the calories, but also that was probably groceries I could have bought for a week with the price of that pizza. Like, I also like, I understand people who eat out of boredom, but on the other side, like, think about it, like, you're probably in a pretty privileged position then, because you can afford to eat all that crap and you can pay for that, because so many people don't have jobs right now. They've lost their income and they don't have anything to eat. So I guess you could feel sorry for yourself. Oh my goodness, we are such a situation, munching on ice cream. Oh my goodness, this is terrible, munching on ice cream. Or you can think, like, why am I doing this? Like, I don't really need this. I just bought a bunch of junk for nothing. Like, I didn't really need this. I didn't really want to buy this. I just spent a bunch of money for nothing. Like, who knows what's going to happen with the economy? Maybe I should have saved this money, Like, again, this is not a politically correct thing to say, but shit, like, I don't know. It seems like any amount of talk about discipline and, actually being diligent with your finances and thinking about the future is being frowned upon. Like, you shouldn't say stuff like that. You shouldn't say stuff like you probably shouldn't waste money on junk food because it's not essential and maybe you could find better use for that money. Crazy.
Yeah, man. I agree. So So yeah, maybe we should call it here, because we went on for an hour and 35 minutes. And yeah, I think this was enough food for thought. Hopefully not junk food for thought for people. So yeah, I guess let's conclude here. So let's pick it up from here the next time around. Yeah, and I'm glad that we could cover some pretty cool topics. So I think this was one of the better quarantine casts that we've done so far.
Yeah, and maybe people would think I'm just a horrible person. I don't know. Again, I'm just coming from. I'm really glad that we were able to approach this topic from two different perspectives, and again, just to repeat this again, I really don't care about what anyone does. Like, if you do want to do this and makes you happy, whatever, I'm all for whatever people think is best for them. I'm also just trying to highlight that it's also okay to be a responsible person right now, and it's also okay to not put yourself into a hole, either financially or from a health point of view, because this is another aspect that it's not really addressed. If you do gain, let's say, it's not. I've heard stories. I've seen a friend of mine told me, he was like, I gained 8 kilos since March, like in 5 weeks, something like that.
That's not bad.
8 kilos in 5 weeks. Imagine this thing lasts for another 5 weeks. Like, in 3 months, you will gain 16 kilos, maybe 20 kilos. Like, we're talking, he's like, what, 7? We're talking more than 20% body weight. Like, imagine if you did gain 20% of your body weight. That's going to take you a year to lose it. A year. Like, it's not going to take 20 weeks, because you probably won't be as diligent with your diet when it comes to losing it than when it was when it came to gaining it. Like, if we go at 0.5% of body weight per week, that's 40 weeks. Add in some holidays and stuff, that's easily a year. Like, if you're okay with being reckless for 2 months or 3 months and do something that's maybe going to take you a year to rectify it, go right ahead. It's your decision. I'm just trying to also outline the possibility or the option that that's not really necessary. It's also okay to not do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think we can all be on board on that. And yeah, I don't think that you came across like a heartless person in this one. So yeah, man. So yeah, follow Andrei on Muscle Engineer Podcast and me on my YouTube channel, which is where you're also gonna see this. So yeah, thanks, Andrei, for being on.